All right, guys, it's Copper Cutlass. Yesterday's video was short. We had a full day of racing. It was really fun. Having a beer. Went out with my wife for dinner, and it's Sunday. We're going to have a little fire and just kind of unwind and relax. The next 5 weeks or so are going to bring in some work our way. Got to take care of that hood. I plan on fixing my buddy Dave's car in that time as well. And we have to figure out this engine and this pile of parts, which we're waiting to hear back from the machine shop when stuff is done. But we know we can race this. That's actually the very first time I've actually raced this car. And we managed to go 3 rounds and bump up our points, and things worked out in our favor this past race. So I'm very, very happy with that, and it just proves that this Olds 350 still has what it takes to get the job done. 15, 22 at 89, I think, was our fastest pass. And if I uncork the headers and probably did a little bit of more work to this car, a little bit more suspension work, this thing would probably run 14s. It's pretty damn impressive. That motor's still making really good steam for how old it is and how many miles and abuse are on it. So that's pretty impressive. But hold on. Let me take a sip. Brief pause. All right. So the reason why I'm out here today was because, well, you've heard me talk about LS engines. And I guess the most backlash is me putting LS in an Olds because I've been mainly involved in the Oldsmobile world most of my time in the hobby. Well, after racing this car this weekend, I realized how fun it was to actually race this car this weekend. I literally just went to the track, raced the car, and drove back. And we went rounds. You see, in bracket racing, you don't have to have the fastest car. It all comes down to, obviously, the faster the car, the higher the stakes, the more competitive. So I run NHRA Sportsman, which is like the working man's class. At our track, it's from 11.0 to 19.0. That's where, the ET breaks are. If you actually go to division finals, it's actually 12.0. So the class is intended for your average Joe. But a lot of these guys that race in this class have been running this class or any form of bracket racing for many, many years. They are very good. I've only been serious about bracket racing the last 3 years, and my goal is to stay within the top 10 and just kind of gradually work my way into, closer to that number 1 spot. And I have a long ways to go. But I've made a lot of good friends at the track, and they've given me a lot of good advice, and I got a lot of advice on if I race this car next time, and I think I might. It'll give us more time to get this car squared away. I'm just worried. I don't want to have 2 broken cars. That's my biggest deal. So if 1 car moves and 1 is broken, that's good. But I've had 2 broken cars in my garage, and it sucks. But I've actually, after yesterday, thought about doing an LS in this. And here's why. So if I build an LS in this car, I can do it with more humble, modest means, I guess. I can do more of a stockish type build, kind of like what this is, right? I think I gave you guys the rundown of this combination. It's a 73 short block, all stock, with just fresh rings and fresh bearings, done 16 years ago. It's got 72 7/8 heads, stock valves, stock springs, just cleaned up, lapped, and put back together. It's got a 260H cam, which is like a 460 lift, like 210-ish duration, very, very, very mild. And an Edelbrock Performer intake and an Edelbrock 600 CFM carb. And this thing absolutely is happy. It's a good little motor. I think it might make close to 300 horse. But I'm thinking do an LS swap on this. Keep that super reliable aspect of the LS engine in this car, and I can drive it and race it and tow with it. Because actually, I want to tow with this car. That's on my bucket list, is to make a nice hitch for it and tow this car to the track with this. Because I actually towed my buddy's Mustang because he broke the clutch. He didn't grenade it. He didn't smoke it. The clutch broke. And I pulled this car from the big end of the track back to our pits, which is like over a half a mile if you take into consideration the loop. I pretty much pulled him in idle. It's a 3,300 pound car. Pulled him, so like this car can definitely pull a trailer. A tongue weight of maybe, I forgot what the tongue weight with the car loaded up would actually be, but when you're towing a trailer versus flat pulling a car, the load is a little different, but neither here nor there. My idea is to build an engine, an LS, and do it for this car. And my goal would be to have like a 13-second car that could do it all. I mean, this car kind of does one thing now. I don't really drive it on the street. I can, and it drives great when it's fucking running. But I'm actually leaning towards an LS swap on this thing. Done a lot of work to this car in the last couple of years. Actually, more work on this than this, to be honest with you, because we did the framework, body bushings, we did a bunch of stuff that needed attention that I'm not going to say it needed it because my dad did a lot of that work, but I went back and redid a lot of stuff. Took out some weight. We got cooler wheels. But I think doing an LS swap in this actually would be the ticket, because I would be able to take that reliability that the LS is known for. And some people are going to hate me for it no matter what, but I'm going with practicality here. I think, I can LS both cars, no problem. But I think to start out, I have to build an engine like this. This was like the first Oldsmobile engine I built, and it's very stockish, but it produced power, and my olds ran 13s, and I miss those days where I ran like a 342 gear, ran 13s, go to the track, have fun, come home. Well, I had a lot of fun going 15s in this car. It's the slowest I have ever been going down the track. I have never done slower than a 13. My very first time at the track was a 1399 with that engine. So from the get-go, we didn't start off too bad, but I think going LS on the Pontiac is actually the ticket, and considering all the work we've done to the car and what I actually have the car for, it actually makes more sense to do the LS than this. Again, my mind has kind of shifted after racing this car, because this car kind of saved my season. And if we can get the olds back up and going, we'll go back to running the car, because driving these two cars is a totally different chore. Totally different chore. When people say, like, you can just change engines and go race, no. The chassis is going to react different. Everything is going to be different. I don't care how good of a driver you are. It's going to take you a little bit to figure out the sweet spot going from one car to the other. Once I figured this car out, this car was pretty consistent. I mean, we knocked out 3 passes that were identical once the car was all heat soaked. It was 1527, 1528, 1528. And that just proves that I can wheel the car pretty consistently after figuring it out. The only variable is the lights, because launching this car was tricky. You'd think that launching a slow car would be easy, but it's not at all. Your pre-anticipation for that last amber, you really have to nail down, otherwise you'll go red. And with this car, it's the opposite. It leaps out really good, and I have to leave after that amber's been on for just like a split second. Otherwise, I'll go red. Or I'll be, triple numbers on the reaction time. It actually, it's a significant difference going from one car to the other. So, because I've had, people tell me, like, do this, do that, I can't put a slow engine in this car, because this car is set up to react a certain way with actually the engine that's in it now, but this setup worked well with the 350 J-headed engine. The 350 J-headed engine, I think I've came to the conclusion that it ran on 7 cylinders most of the passes that we made with it, to be honest with you. And it didn't 60 foot nearly as strong as this engine, but I had the lights figured out with that setup, and I actually like that setup a lot better for bracket racing than this engine, because this engine that's in here now, I had a lot more harder of a time nailing down the lights versus the other engine. And that's where, like, figuring out that middle of the road, what we want to do, is really going to be crucial here. Because again, I don't know which engine produces more power, to be honest with you, because between the two engines, there isn't a tenth of a difference. And if the 350J with the J heads was running on 7 cylinders, we ran an 1158 on 7 cylinders. Keep in mind that first time out, we had problems with the car wanting to run. So we were probably from the get-go that engine was hurt, because it did have 2 hours of runtime on the engine run stand where I revved it and did my break-in. Like, even though I didn't need a break-in, I still did a break-in on it. So it, probably from day one, that motor was hurt, to be honest with you, looking back and thinking back with all the issues that I had. But yeah, so that's just something to kind of keep in mind, because if we ran an 1158 with 7 cylinders, and we still, like, in April, we had that issue where we were losing spark and we couldn't dial in our tune because we had a bad cylinder, and it still ran an 1172 at 113. Imagine what it would do with 8 cylinders firing properly. Yeah. So that engine still has a lot of potential, and I'm not done with it. So I am leaning more towards the 350J headed engine, even though the guides are probably a little loose on there still, and we're going to go for broke at this point. Like, I don't care if I blow that engine up or this one, because it just gives me a better excuse to go LS or conventional Chevy or small block or big block, whatever. At this point, it's like, I need a change, and the only way I can make change is to get rid of shit, whether it blows up or I sell it. So I'll let you guys go. Share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, Scott Pacala. See you later.